Hi everyone, meteorologist Robert Spetta here with you today. It is currently the 29th of December 2014, making this update right around 9 a.m. Japan Standard Time. That's about 8 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. Of course, we are talking about Tropical Storm Sanyang, now being upgraded by Pagasa to a tropical storm. Likewise, with the Joint Typhoon Warning Center now making it upwards of that 65 kilometer per hour threshold. Still, I think the biggest issue with this is going to be the rainfall. Do want to note JMA actually still has this as a tropical depression, but if you could take a look at the convection here on our Monday morning around that center of circulation, I mean, there is just an abundance. You have these very high cloud tops forming just along the northern periphery of the storm system. Areas like Surigao over towards Cagayan de Oro, you're really going to be seeing the rainfall today, and I think that, I know that is going to be the biggest issue with this storm system. Take a look at the latest radar as of this morning coming out of Cebu, and you can see just towards the east, look at these areas. These are indicating some areas as much as 30 to potentially 40 to 50 millimeters per hour of rainfall. That is enough to cause some significant flooding. And one thing I do want to know is with the Pagasa warnings, especially across some of these areas which are getting the heaviest rainfall, yes, you are in signal force 2, but at least at this time, I don't think this truly reflects the warnings that should be put out there as far as the flooding. Signal force only reflects the wind, so we have signal force 2 in a place. At least that does give some advisories and warnings out there for people, and they do know that a tropical system is overhead. But the biggest issue is going to be in some of these areas in the orange, and also across southern portions of Samar with the threat of flooding and landslides, especially people who live in low-lying areas in these river basins. That's what I think. I think rapid river level rise is going to be one of the biggest issues throughout the day today. And plus, it's just persistent rainfall over the course of, well, basically about 24 to 36 hours. That saturates the grounds and creates the threat of landslides. Take a look at our tropical depression forecast from the Japan Meteorological Agency. As I mentioned, they still have the pressure about 1,000 HPA, moving towards the west-northwest. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center now with those winds up to 35, gusting to 45 knots. Moving over northeastern Mindanao, basically in a similar track as we just mentioned with JMA, also JTWC, and Pagasa. There's no difference in the tracks here, guys. I know the last storm, there was a lot of complications with the different agencies saying something different, but at least at this time, Pagasa has no reason to go out there and say, hey, did the forecast better than some of the other agencies. I really just don't see that happening here. But what we do have, at least at this time, is just this big blob of cloud cover and heavy rainfall. And I say blob, I know that is definitely not very technical of me, but just take a look at the satellite imagery. Here's your storm system down here on the bottom left of your screen, and just look how massive it is. And really the biggest issue is these areas in the darker colors. That's where we're going to be seeing the heaviest rainfall. Now for Manila, you're actually on the northern periphery of this, and as you can see here, we're not going to be seeing very many showers. Maybe some of the outer bands could bring some scattered cloud cover, a few isolated showers here on Monday and Tuesday. But the northeast monsoon, this cold air surging in out of China, you can see even some of those dry cumulus really forming up over the East China Sea. That's pouring down towards the south. So actually parts of northern Luzon, you're going to be seeing some rather dry conditions, but it will be rather blustery out there. Let's take a look at our ECOF model, and really like using this because I can demonstrate what I'm talking about here. We have that tight pressure gradient forming north of our center of circulation. Here's our low pressure area, our tropical depression, now a tropical storm that is, and we have our high pressure over China. And yes, I pull this all the way back here towards the north because this has an influence on the weather over the Philippines. It pushes towards the south, it creates this tight pressure gradient. So what we're seeing is gale force winds across, while much of Luzon extending down here towards parts of Visayas, and that's also bringing in those blustery conditions but very dry weather across northern Luzon and keeping all the rainfall down towards the south. It also keeps it on this very slow movement, guys. As we go ahead through Monday and the Tuesday, this doesn't go very far, very fast. It just kind of sits here, and throughout the day on Monday and Tuesday, we're looking at some exceptionally heavy rainfall really taking place. And take a look at actually the 72-hour forecast totals. It's also based on that ECMWF forecast, and you can see here is some areas in northern Mindanao extending over through parts of Samar, and yes, also for those of you also into Cebu, you really could see some upwards of about 300 millimeters of precipitation. So as I mentioned earlier, the rainfall really is the biggest factor here. Also in Cagayan de Oro, I make specific mention of this place. You're going to be expecting rainfall throughout the day. Remember just 3 years ago we had Tropical Storm Washi, and remember that one never made it to typhoon intensity. I hear people often say it was a typhoon. It never was by no agency, and that one caused upwards of 1,300 deaths. I'm not saying this tropical storm will do that, but I think one of the biggest issues we are having here is that this formed rather quickly as far as what Pagasa is concerned. We've been talking about it for nearly a week now, but warnings just were put out there yesterday. When you have a very short warning span on a relatively weak system as far as the winds, but we are getting a tremendous amount of rainfall, I think people may not be as jumpy on this one prior to it coming on shore. Now, seeing the reports, people are saying, wow, there's a storm here. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest threat with this is the bigger human factor. I hope everybody does make the proper preparations and nothing really comes out of this outside of it's a wet and rainy start of the work week and heading into the New Year's for some of you out here. I hope that is the worst impact to come from this, but it is going to be slow moving and still a big serious flood threat out here, guys. All right, the other bigger issue I really do want to mention is that the last several days we've been talking about the rainfall over Malaysia. Heavy rainfall warnings in effect out here. It's a very serious situation still ongoing, and the precipitation with this river of moisture is expected to continue at least through Monday and the Tuesday. You can just see that flowing down towards the south. It lets up as our tropical storm starts to head off here towards the west. It kind of sucks in some of the moisture with it, but I fear it could be really just making things worse in the long range as we look ahead into Friday and Saturday heading into the weekend. This is going to move out there into the South China Sea and just kind of linger, and potentially it's going to bring some heavy rainfall. This is something I really want to watch. I think the bigger impact is going to be over towards Vietnam, but this is a very, very precarious situation at the very least, I do want to say. We're going to keep an eye on this in the long range. You can see the JTWC track also reflecting that southerly dip in the forecast. All right, guys, that is all for right now. Questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always post them down there in the comment box below. And as always, everyone, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.